Our question says, calculate the surface area of the following shape. And then there's a picture underneath of what kind of reminds me of an ice cream cone. If I look at my formula sheet, I notice that that shape is not any one single shape on this sheet, but I do think it is perhaps a combination of shapes. So when I look at the picture, I do notice that there is a circle in there, which means it has to be made up of cylinders or spheres or cones. And I know this is a 3D shape and not a flat 2D shape because it asks about the surface area and because it has those kind of three-dimensional looking lines to make it look like it's 3D. So I think there's definitely a cone on the bottom, and then I think that that is a sphere or half of a sphere on the top. So I think this shape is a cone plus half of a sphere. So the first thing I'm going to do is go through and try to label the different shapes and where the dimensions go. So I think I might start with the cone. Now the cone on my formula sheet is upside down compared to the cone that's on this question. So I'm going to turn my formula sheet upside down so that they match. So on my shape, from the center to the edge of the circular part is the radius. And then from that center to the tip of the cone on the inside, that's my height. And then the outside slanted edge, that's our S. And these meet at 90 degrees. Okay, the other part is the sphere. So I notice it's only half of a sphere. The only dimension that our sphere really has is a radius, and that's already been marked when I did the cone. So first thing I need to do after that is I need to try to figure out what the length of each side actually is. So if I look at my picture, I notice that this thing is 14 centimeters wide. So if it's 14 centimeters wide at the bottom, it's going to be 14 centimeters wide at the top as well, which means the diameter of the circle part there is 14 centimeters. So the radius is half of the diameter, so 14 divided by 2 means that this part here is 7 centimeters. Now, if I look at the up and down, it tells me the whole height from the tip of the cone to the top of that sphere is 22 centimeters. Part of that 22 is going to be the height of my cone, and part of that 22 is going to be the height of my sphere. Now, the thing about a sphere, or a circle, is that the distance that's the radius from the center to the edge can be measured at any place on your circle or your sphere. So here, the distance from the center to the edge, I drew it there, but I could also have drawn from the center to the edge going straight up and down, which means this part here is also 7 centimeters. So this part down here, my height of just the cone, is going to be 22 minus 7. 22 take away 7 is 15 centimeters. So I now know that this part here on the inside is 15 centimeters. Okay. So I think since I know the radius, I'm going to start with the sphere, and I'm going to try to find the surface area of half of the sphere. So the formula for the surface area of a sphere is 4 pi r squared. So I'm going to start by saying, I think we're going to label the sphere first. So surface area, you can just write A instead of SA for surface area, is 4 pi r squared. And since it's only half of a sphere, I'm going to divide that by 2 so that I only get half of the surface area. Okay, so 4, I'm going to leave that. Pi, I'm going to use pi button on my calculator. And then r, we already said was 7. So 7 squared is 7 times 7, so I'm going to write it down as 7 times 7. You could leave it as 7 squared, and then that is divided by 2. right, I'm going to use my calculator. So 4 times pi. If you don't have a pi button, just use 3.14159, please. Times 7, and then divided by 2. And I get 307.87. I like 2 decimal places. I am going to take a quick peek at the next one, which is a 6. So that's going to push this up to 88 instead of 87. So it's going to be 307.88. Since I rounded that, I'm going to put a dot over my equal sign, and that should be centimeters, and it is area, so centimeters squared. So just that half sphere on the top, the surface area is 307.88 centimeters squared. Now to tackle the cone, I'm going to look back at my formula sheet. The formulas here, I kind of just use the one at the bottom and then modify as needed. So it says that the surface area of a cone is pi rs plus pi r squared. Okay, now when I think about surface area is the outside of a shape. We do not include anything on the inside of the shape. So our cone has its sides, so the lateral side, and it also has a circle as its base. But the problem is that that circle that was its base is now inside the shape because the half a sphere is sitting on top of it. So that circle part is no longer a part of the surface because it's on the inside of the shape. So if I take a look at my formula sheet, they have broken down for us what all the different parts are. The area of that base, it is a circle. The area of a circle is pi r squared. So what I need to do is either remove the pi r squared from my formula or subtract out the circle, so minus pi r squared, and then subtract out that area. I think I'm just going to cancel out the pi r squared because the base is missing. It's inside that shape. So we're really just doing pi rs. So pi, I'm going to use my pi button. R is 7, and then S is my slant height. So I know that the actual height inside is 15, but I don't know what the slant height is. And in order to calculate that, I'm going to need to use Pythagorean theorem. I notice that this is a right angle triangle inside here. So I should be able to calculate what S is using Pythagorean theorem. So Pythagorean theorem says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And sometimes this diagram just gets so messy with all the letters and it's not that big that I like to just draw the triangle so that I can label things. This is 7, this is 15, and then this is the one we're trying to find. When we're doing Pythagorean theorem, the one across from the 90 is always our C, and then it doesn't matter of the other two, which one I call A and which one I call B. So I chose A to be 7, so 7 squared, plus B is 15, so 15 squared, equals C, which I don't know, so that's my slant, squared. So 7 squared, 7 times 7 is 49. 15 squared, 15 times 15 is 225. And then S squared. So 49 plus 225 is 274. Now that gives me S squared. I want to know what just S is, so I'm going to do the opposite of a square, which is a square root, to cancel that out. So I'm going to do the square root, which is 16.55. The next number is a 2, which means it's less than 5, so we're going to leave that alone. So it's just going to be 16.55. So that is centimeters. And I rounded, so I'm going to put a dot over my equal sign. So our slant height is approximately 16.55 centimeters. which means I can now put that into my surface area calculation. This is 16.55. Now, you would get a more accurate final answer if you left all of the decimal places instead of just using 16.55, but I'm going to use the rounded number for now. So I'm going to do pi, I'm using my pi button, times 7 times 16.55. Oops, I don't think the decimal worked there. Let's go back. 0.55 equals, and I get 363.95, and then the next number is a 3, so I'm going to leave it as 0.95. So 363.95 centimeters squared, and I rounded, so I'm going to put the approximately sign on there. Now, these two shapes have been added together. It is a cone on the bottom, it's a sphere on the top, and they've been put together. So to get my final area, I am going to add the two numbers together. So 307.88 plus 364.95 gives me a grand total, let's see, 307.88 plus 364.95. I get 673.83 centimeters squared. And since I rounded the answers it took to get this, I probably should put a little dot that says that that's just an approximate answer. So once you've done a question that involves a lot of steps, it's a good idea just to write a little therefore at the end. So it said calculate the surface area. I'm going to say the surface area is 673.83 centimeters squared.